Welcome to our channel. The goal of this channel and the podcasts that we're going to be publishing is to educate the general public on recent Nevada Supreme Court decisions so that you can know what your rights are in various fields of law. Today I'm going to discuss child custody. How does Nevada define child custody? Many times clients come to me and they really don't know what kind of custody they have or what they can expect to get from a judge. And almost every single time I do this lecture when people come to me for an initial consultation, I can't ask them what they want me to do unless they know what's available to them. So hopefully by watching this video they won't be asking me these questions in consultations. The major categories of custody, there's two, is legal custody and physical custody. Every single child custody determination is going to have both types of custody, legal custody and physical custody mentioned. So what are they? Well, it's very simple. Legal custody is the decision-making power over your child. In other words, who gets to decide where the child goes to school, who gets to decide what doctor the child sees, religious affiliations, anything to do with the upbringing of the child. That's what we call legal custody. And there's two subcategories. So every case is going to have legal custody and one of the subcategories. Okay? The subcategories are joint legal custody or sole legal custody, S-O-L-E, sole. Joint legal custody means that both parents have equal say in the upbringing of their children or child. Both parents have to participate and cooperate in school-related matters, religion-related matters, medical decisions, and so forth. Legal custody, joint legal, they have to cooperate. Sole legal means that one parent has all the power and the other parent is out of the picture. And that could be for many reasons. Maybe the other parent is not mentally able to assist in the decision-making of the child. Maybe that other parent has dementia or something, and seeking their advice in the upbringing of the child just simply wouldn't make sense. The parent that doesn't have that decision-making power could also be incarcerated. Or there could be so many reasons why a parent wouldn't have any influence over their child's life. So that would be, in those circumstances, one parent would have sole legal custody and the other parent would have no legal custody. All right? So I've covered the topic of legal custody, and now I'm going to go to physical custody. Physical custody is the actual time each parent spends with the child. Now, the Nevada Supreme Court has fairly clearly defined two of the three subcategories under physical custody. And I'll just briefly mention what they are and then I'll describe each one. Under physical custody, there's sole physical custody, there's joint physical custody, and then there's primary physical custody / visitation. All right? So, sole physical custody is the type of custody that has not really been defined by the Nevada Supreme Court clearly. In the decision of Rivero versus Rivero, the Nevada Supreme Court spent considerable amount of ink discussing the other two subcategories, but not sole physical. Probably because sole physical is so easy to determine. Sole physical just simply means that one parent has all of the time with the child and the other parent is out of the picture, has no visitation, perhaps is dead, maybe incarcerated, maybe has abandoned the family. That would be sole physical custody. The other two types of custody is where all the fighting in family court lay. And the reason that the Rivero decision and other decisions like the Bluestein decision had to spend significant, I mean, we're talking 2 lawyers going all the way through trial and then going through an appeal. These cases took years to be finally decided at the Supreme Court level so that we all could understand what in the heck physical custody is in Nevada. So these other 2 subcategories, joint physical and primary physical with visitation. These are where all the contention is. Joint physical custody under Rivero is simply that the parents share physical time with their child, ideally 50-50. Each one gets 50% of the time with the child. It could be week on, week off. One parent gets 1 week, the other parent gets another week. It could be 3.5 days, 3.5 days. And the Rivero decision clearly said 50-50 is what traditionally joint physical custody should be. However, there are so many rights that go along with physical custody that people were fighting over whether the other parent had 50% time, and they were arguing the parent had less than 50% time, maybe only 49%. And the other parent had 51%. So that 51% parent was primary and the other parent was just a visitor. Well, if you have primary physical custody, you have a lot more rights with regard to your child than if you have joint. For one thing, you get child support. Maybe you get maybe more child support than you get with joint physical. That's one. Also, the process for relocating with the child might be a little easier if you have primary physical custody as opposed to joint physical custody. So parents were fighting over the exact amount of time in order to try to get one up on the other parent in family court. The Supreme Court in the Rivero case did not like that. They did not like all this fighting over a few measly hours of time. So they said it can be as much as 40%. As long as each parent has at least 40% of the time, it's still considered joint. And the reasoning behind that was to allow for school schedules, work schedules, and so forth. Obviously, if you're rushing to pick up your kid after work and you don't actually have the kid in your custody, maybe that time, that half an hour or an hour, shouldn't really be part of the general idea that the district court level judge has to look at in order to determine custody. So in Rivero, they also said meaningful time with the kids. So 40% of the time, but meaningful time. Which then raised the question, well, if the child's asleep, if you have custody of the child while it's night and the child's asleep, is that considered meaningful? There's been a lot of debate over those issues, which later caused the Bluestein case several years later to go up in front of the Nevada Supreme Court. And again, in the Bluestein case, the parents were arguing over what it means to have, what time means. And instead of arguing 50-50, now they're arguing whether one parent actually had 40% of the time or less than 40% of the time. So they just moved the barometer from 50 to 40. And the Nevada Supreme Court decided in the Bluestein case, you know what? Again, we're not so concerned about the exact timeshare. You district court level judges, what you need to really be focused on is the best interests of the child. So use that timeshare that we talked about in Rivero as a guide, as a tool. Look at it, but then you still have to go through all the best interest factors to determine which parent should have custody and whether it should be joint physical custody or primary physical custody. So if you have primary physical custody, you would have 60%, more than 60% of the time with your child. And the other parent would have visitation rights, like maybe on the weekends, 2 days a week. One parent has 5 days, the other parent has 2. Or if you happen to be living in other parts of the country, the primary physical custodian would have the school year, and the visiting parent would have a month or 2 in the summer, and maybe spring break and maybe Christmas break, alternating holidays and so forth. So just to recap, there are 2 major categories of custody. Legal custody, which is a decision-making power over the child. 2 categories: joint legal and sole legal. On the physical custody side, where all the fighting is in family court because of child support and so forth, you have sole physical custody. It's where one parent has 100% of the time. You have joint physical custody where it's 50-50 or 40-60 time split. But you have to, the district court level judge has to explain how they got to this arrangement using the best interest factors, which I will discuss in the next video. And then there's the third category, which is primary physical custody to one parent with visitation rights to the other parent. In the next video I'm going to be discussing, or next podcast, I will be discussing the best interest factors and what the judges look at to determine physical custody in the state of Nevada. Hopefully, if you want to have a consultation with my office, you'll have reviewed this video and you'll have some good questions to pose to me in the consultation with regard to these types of custody. I'm Nevada attorney Anthony Wright. Please subscribe below and leave comments, but remember, comments are not confidential in a public forum.